Hey everybody, welcome. My name is David Radford and this is Make It Rad. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of setup for the channel and getting my printers ready to be able to record time lapses. I have two 3D printers. Both of them are controlled by OctoPrint running on Raspberry Pis. And right now the Raspberry Pis are just sitting on the desk next to the printers. And I also don't have any cameras to be able to record time lapses. So today we're going to be getting some cases printed up, and also I've ordered some cameras, so those are going to be here in just a couple of days, and we're going to set those up, see how they work, test them out, and get things ready to actually be able to make some fun projects. I've got some really fun stuff planned for this summer, so definitely stick around to check out what those projects are. I think you're going to really enjoy them. But before we can actually get started on anything, I have to clean up my office because it's an absolute disaster and I'm not going to be able to work. So let's get that cleaned up really quick first, and then we'll come back and start working on getting those cases printed up and ready to go. Office is now clean and I feel really good about it. It hasn't been this clean in far too long. So I've got two 3D printers. I've got an Ender 3 that I've done a couple of upgrades on. And then I have a printer that I've been working on for a couple of years that started its life as an ANET A2 Plus. It's not that anymore. Done just about every upgrade you can think of: motherboard, linear rails, dual Z-axes, hot end, everything. Pretty much nothing from the original printer is left. Right now I don't really have a great way to record time lapses of those prints, so I've just ordered some cameras for that. But in the meantime, what I'm going to be doing today is actually trying to find or design, if I have to, some cases for the Raspberry Pis that are running OctoPrint for these printers. Let's go ahead and hop over to the computer and see what we can find. Ideally, I'd have something that would mount right on a 2020 aluminum extrusion. So this one right here looks interesting, specifically for the Ender 3 CR10. I'm not entirely sure what qualifies it to be for those printers. We need an opening for the Pi cam. Oh, this person's using that ribbon. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the original. Oh, interesting. So this hooks over the edge of the 2020 extrusion and just basically hangs on the side of the printer. All right, let's go ahead and get the slicer opened up. I use Prusa slicer, and for this, I'm going to be using a 0.24 millimeter print settings. I don't really care if it has a whole lot of detail. It just needs to hold the Raspberry Pi. So I do have two printers that need these, so I'm going to go ahead and increase these and slice it. Okay. 8 hours and 43 minutes. We'll send this off to print and see you guys in just a little bit. Oh, it got dark in here. All right. So no. Okay, let's try this other one. All right, so that is an issue that I'm having with this particular design, is that these little tabs require a really high layer adhesion, which isn't a bad thing, but it definitely speaks to who is going to be able to use this case. I think I am actually going to just leave end caps off. I don't really need the end cap on there. I just wanted something nice to be able to hold it. And especially for one of these, actually both of them shortly, I'm going to be using 2 of the GPIO pins for my filament runout sensors, so as long as I use the endmost caps, those will actually act as a blocker to hold the Raspberry Pi. Okay, so this one looks a little funny in this case because it doesn't have the full-size ports anymore, but that's a complete non-issue. There we go. All right, so we are going to hook up the Ender 3 first, and after actually getting this thing printed, it looks like it doesn't quite just hang nicely. So I think it's designed to actually slide over the middle of here. So this may not work very well for my other printer, but we'll give this a shot and see what we end up with. So I'm gonna take the end cap off right there. Okay, man, it is snug. Okay. Grab power cord, USB. We'll go ahead and put the end cap back on that extrusion. All right, so let's see if we can get this on here. So I do actually have a piece of 2040 extrusion as part of this center rail here, and I can get at it fairly easily by just removing this limit switch for a second. All right, I've got the limit switch disconnected, pulled out of the way, and let's see if we can get this slid on. Okay, now that I've reached the end, I do need to employ Mjolnir. Let's see if I can get this to... The first thing that I'm going to attach is actually my filament runout sensor. So I'm going to plug these into the first 2 GPIO pins. Okay, let's see if I can get them in there. Oh, that hole's a little bit too small. Dang it, I'm gonna have to slide this whole thing back off and file down this header, or this opening on top of the box. So this is a perfect example of why you always want to check your prints and their sizes before you actually move forward with them. Just a little tiny wood file. Okay. The file is just barely able to fit, so let's see if I can get that shot. So it does fit inside the slot. All right, let's try this out. This time, before actually sliding it onto the printer, got these little plugs here. Let's keep that other one up in there. All right. And now that it's slid onto the printer once, it actually slides on very smoothly. All right, so here we are a couple days later. The cameras have been delivered. Got the package right over here, so let's go ahead and get those cracked open, plugged into the Pis, and see what OctoPrint sees from it. Check out the quality of the camera, and then we've got to get those mounted so we can get some nice time lapses. Let's see what we've got in here. We've got instruction manual and les pièces de résistance. Wow, this is a lot bigger than I thought it was. Okay. That's okay though. So yeah, this is definitely larger than I expected it to be, but that is totally fine. All right, let's go ahead and get these plugged into a Raspberry Pi and see how well they work. Alright guys, this project just got a lot more interesting and I'm super excited to tell you what I realized, the problem I found, how I plan to try to solve this. Something to note about these cameras is they have, here, let me get my photos. They have a little photoresistor right there, that blue thing, and that actually senses how much light there is in the room to switch between day vision and night vision. And I was finding that it's a little bit too sensitive. So it's switching to night vision when there's still plenty of light in the room. Now, this is an LDR, a light dependent resistor. And I'm gonna be fully open with you guys. This is not information that I knew before I started working with these. I have no experience with LDRs. I have very limited experience with actually building electronics. I can manipulate them and tweak them and program them and things like that, but actually building them is something that I don't have a lot of experience with. So did a little bit of research, kind of figured out how LDRs work, and basically the way that they work is it is a resistor that starts off at potentially several mega ohms, and then as light touches the sensor, it reduces the amount of resistance down to the hundreds of ohms. So essentially, what my plan to do here is to trick this into thinking that there's always a little bit more light than there actually is. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to hook this up to my bench and just experiment and see if I bridge just a solid wire with no resistance from one side to the other, it will always think that there's light. So my plan is to try to find a resistor that when I bridge that connection and have my other resistor in parallel to this LDR, what resistor gives me the light sensitivity that I'm looking for. So taking a product, I can't get in here and reprogram this, so I'm taking a product that I bought off the shelf, does a pretty good job, but I just want to tweak it. So this is a perfect example of a lot of the stuff that I love doing, and the reason that I love getting into these projects, because rather than just being bummed out and leaving a 3-star Amazon review and just being grumpy about it, like, I can actually improve this product. I can make it better and make it better suit my needs. I've got the camera right here. It is plugged into the printer down below it, and then what you can't see is over on my monitor. I have it pulled up so I can actually take a look at how it's coming out. If I cover this sensor up, you'll hear a little click. You hear that? Ooh, and the camera's actually picking up the IR LEDs. Oh, that might even be a better way to do this, is just use a camera, because you can actually see those. That purple, I can't see with the naked eye. All right, so now, if I take this and I just use these basic tweezers to bridge, so I'm just pinching sides of the wires right here, it essentially deactivates the LDR because I'm producing zero resistance. So now, if I cover that, nothing, okay? So let's open up this resistor kit and see what we got. Trying out a 10K. So for me, this is just trial and error. I didn't build this camera. I don't know what sort of resistance it's looking for, but this is some of the fun of it, is just figuring out what works and what doesn't work. At least initially, I'm not going to do any soldering. I'm not going to do any anything like that. I'm literally just going to basically form a pair of tweezers out of this resistor, and I'm just going to pinch the two posts on the LDR and then cover the sensor and see what it does. Okay. Okay, so that is not enough resistance. So 10K is not enough. What do I have that's higher? I hope I have something that's higher. I do have something that's higher. Let's just 10x that. We'll just go up to 100K right now. Once again, just gonna basically make some tweezers out of this. Okay. Okay, so now it's still working. Perfect. Okay, so somewhere in the 10, so this is 100K. This is probably in the right range, but I can't quite tell. I'm gonna have to, let me think here. So I need to be able to look at this and test it. All right, I'm gonna have to actually pause the video for a little bit and test this offline. All right, testing is done. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. 470 kilo ohms is the magic number. I'm going to be using my little clamp here. The resistor is actually slightly larger. I mean, it's just wider than the whole thing. So I think I'm just going to deal with it being wider and still attach it to the top. So I'm just going to create a little buckle on the back of it. Just wrap the resistor basically back over on top of itself. Okay, so that looks just about perfect. Get a little bit extra blob over there. And then now all right, so I'm just trying to figure out the right angle to hold this at that I can. I know you guys can't really see a whole lot of what I'm doing right now, but I'll get a better shot of this in a minute. Okay. So one side is kind of tacked in place. Okay, let's see if I can get a good shot of this. So right now, I've got that right side tacked in place, and the left side is, can't really barely see it. It's not actually soldered to its other connection there, but it's just sitting right next to it. So it's in the right place. I just need to actually attach it now. That looks good. So what I've done here really isn't a whole lot. I've just essentially reduced the sensitivity of the LDR by adding this resistor to constantly allow a little bit more current than the LDR would normally allow through. So I'm still letting it do its sensitivity, or I'm still letting it do its job, but I've just basically tricked it into always thinking there's a teeny bit more light. It doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as it's connected, that will work just fine. All right, so I got the cameras hooked back into the Raspberry Pis, and the fix that we came up with is working perfectly. It is no longer switching to night vision in my remarkably bright office. And I was able to get a really cool time lapse of something that I'm going to be working on in the next video, and that is this custom 3D printed case. So we are going to be building a handheld game console using a Raspberry Pi and this 3D printed case here. So if you haven't already, go ahead and hit like and subscribe down below to be notified of when that video comes out. In the meantime, get out there, have some fun, make something awesome. See you guys later.